this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger.
The world lives pretty sheltered, in my opinion, the entire world. The world has no idea what living at a constant level all the time of stress, thinking, okay, I could die, or I could live and I could hurt somebody else. It's a constant stress. And you can't just shut it off. There's no turning it off. My name is Michael David Bushfield. I grew up in northern New York on Fort Drum. My dad was a chaplain in the United States Army. Growing up on a military base, there's not a lot of freedoms to do things that you want to do. There's a lot of rules, so you follow the rules and stay inside when it's too cold or go outside when you want. Just because my dad was in the Army, I think, I wanted to join the Army and go overseas. It was not the best place for a 17-year-old kid to be. I remember calling my mom, crying, 2 weeks into infantry training, saying, get me out of this. Real quickly, I had to grow up. The infantry breeds a culture of wanting to go to combat. We were watching Shock and Awe on TV every night, you know? We were literally watching it unfold, and when you're seeing the game starting to unfold in front of you and you know that you're about to go in the game, you start getting excited. In the beginning, a lot of it was high intensity, but at the same time, a lot of it was mundane. You're waiting for an IED to be cleared, or for EOD to come up and do this, or, you know, screw it, we're just gonna put a tank ground in this building because we're not gonna clear this one. It was just violent. It was constant violence. And if it wasn't a person, it was violence from the environment. Like everything was booby-trapped. They would just booby-trap stairwells, or they would booby-trap doorways. IEDs and trash piles everywhere you go. That was when I realized that it wasn't like the movies. I can get hurt. I'm not invincible. War is real, and I'm not the action star of this movie.
Which changes everything.
Everything changes. Yeah. I was just a young, dumb 18-year-old kid, and I had zero idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to process emotions. I was popping Ambien to sleep like it was candy. And I don't know if you've ever taken Ambien, and I don't know why the Army gives Ambien, but you would get in a firefight if you're on Ambien, and you would do some crazy shit, and you have zero memory whatsoever. And so it became this thing that I would take, not just for sleep, but so I didn't have to remember the day-to-day things that I was going through. I was pretty high speed and gung-ho and super excited about everything I did. I always had a smile on my face. I was always a pretty happy guy that always did exactly what he was told. And if somebody needed something, they knew that they could ask Bushfield and I would make it happen. Something changed in everybody's mindset when we got back. I wanted to re-engage in the life that I had before Iraq, and it didn't happen that way. The world that I was expecting to come back to, it wasn't there anymore. It was gone. I didn't find joy in the same things. I was fighting instead of partying. It just wasn't the same. And the interactions that we had with the civilian population in Germany, or even when I was stateside, I was a different person. For so long, you're just constantly at a high level of alertness and awareness that you just can't shut it off. And I mean, we're talking, this is 20 years ago, and I still get these feelings in certain situations that I can't explain to you, and I can't be like, oh, this is why. I have an understanding of why, but I don't know why it still happens. We're talking about 20 years ago. When I got back from that deployment, I did some contract work for the Department of State, and so I went back to Iraq. Nothing as intense as that 15-month though. Because of that situation, I didn't really slow down until around 2009 or 2010. And when that happened and I got to Idaho, I started having really bad nightmares and anxiety and depression, and I didn't know what to do. And so I went to the VA and I said, hey, these are the problems I'm having. And they said, all right, well, we're gonna put you on this medication and this medication, this medication. I think in 2011 or 12, I was on 13 medications, and I was 350 pounds roughish, super depressed, didn't want to be alive. I lived in a fog. In the military, there's two types of people. There's assets and there's liabilities. Well, when you become a liability and you've always been an asset your whole life, you just get depressed and you don't want to be around anymore. And so I tried to take my life, and it didn't work. I took a bunch of pills. I took a lot of pills, actually. Ambien, I figured it was only fitting since that's pretty much what started the downfall, in my opinion. I took a ton of Ambien, and when I came to, I was in Intermountain Hospital, and I was locked in this room, and I was like panicked because I had no recollection of what happened at all. And I was pounding on the door, and these nurses came and they told me everything that happened the night before, and that I had my stomach pumped and I tried to kill myself. I remember during the suicide hold that I was on at this mental hospital being pissed, being mad that I couldn't leave, being pissed at the world, just wanting to get out of there so that I didn't have to listen to these people anymore. So I did. I left, and nothing really changed, if I'm being honest, as far as the medications, the thoughts, the depression. None of it really went away after I got out of that hospital. I just didn't really want to be on the earth anymore. I thought of myself as a liability. And for someone, again, that has always been an asset and has always been able to perform when asked to perform, I just felt like I was done and there wasn't anything left for me. About this time, I served with a lot of guys, obviously, and another individual I served with took his life days after I got out of the hospital. And this dude started a family with a great German woman. He had 4 kids on the outside, like far more squared away than me. Never in a million years would I thought this dude was struggling. Took his life though. And when that happened, that was the turning point, the beginning of where I am at now. That was the moment that I thought, all right, instead of squandering and worrying about my issues and worrying about me, what if I stopped and started living for the guys like him, the guys that have been through continuous deployments over and over and over again? What if I started living for those guys and therefore carrying on the memory of the guys that didn't make it home? And so that was the beginning of the Mike Bushfield you see before you now. I went to the VA and I said, this is the situation I'm in, what do I do? I met another veteran who was the outdoor recreational therapist at this time. This was maybe 2016. And he starts telling me, you know, dude, you need to get out of the house. You need to do something, live for something. You need to experience life. You need to get out of isolation. And then I see on Instagram that there is an elk hunt happening in May, Idaho with Wishes for Warriors. So I applied for the elk hunt. And that trip for me set me on the current path that I'm on now. And what I mean by that is that it was basically what I decided years ago when I had this turning moment that I just wanted to live for others. And so it basically coincided with this current path that I was on. It was just guys that you could tell had the same issues that you were experiencing, doing something together out of their comfort zone. And when you break it all down, that's what it boils down to, is all of these things that Wishes for Warriors does, it's out of all of our comfort zone. Positive chaos. You're doing something where you're feeling the same thing, but you're replacing a traumatic experience with something that's exciting. And you're doing it with guys that you can trust. There's no medication that can copy that in the world. Suicide for me is a big thing that's scary. It's like the scary monster in the closet. Because I have this history of this in my life, I know what it feels like. I know what those thoughts feel like. I've always had friends in the background or guys that I've served with. And then you hear about their struggles, or you hear that somebody gave up in life. It sets you back, to be honest. It sets you back because you feel like that could be me. You know, that guy was squared away. He had a family. He had a good job. He had things going for him. Why would he do that? Psychologically, you're doing good in life, then all of a sudden you hear about something else that is so similar to you that you get this fear that it could be you. And so for me, if I could save one dude's life, if someday something that I did impact them, I'll feel fulfilled. Helping others get to where I feel is healthy. And if I can help others get to where I'm at, I feel fulfilled. I think that I've done a service and I've become an asset, and I'm no longer a liability.